The containment bay smelled of copper and ozone, the kind of metallic tang that tightened the throat and turned breath shallow. Keith's palm brushed the cold bulkhead as he slid into the chamber, every step measured against the humming machinery and the thin staccato of the life support monitors. In the corner, slumped like a ruined monument, the Zathan Queen filled the space with a mix of menace and exhaustion. 9 feet of chitinous carapace, 4 taloned arms folded in unnatural angles and molten gold eyes that tracked Keith's entrance with slow, lethal focus. Even bound by glowing energy cuffs, she was an imposing testament to a war that had cost thousands of lives. From the observation deck above, Judith's voice threaded into Keith's ear through the comm unit, a tremor of disbelief and reprimand. Command's orders had been clear. Leave her, let the wound rot. The Queen wasn't some civilian. She had ordered the glassing of Titan Colony, 300,000 dead, and the Alliance's rage had hardened into policy. But Keith had taken an oath long before fleets and headlines, to treat the wounded regardless of the uniform they wore. He tightened the strap of a weathered medical kit, the small square of humanity he carried into hostile spaces. His reasons were simple but stubborn. He was a medic and he remembered friends lost at Titan. There was a fine and private war inside him between grief and duty. He stepped forward. The hatch sealed with a hiss, a physical punctuation to a moral choice. The Queen's head turned. Mandibles clicked in a sound that might have been curiosity or a prelude to violence. Purple fluid seeped from a jagged wound along her thorax, spreading slow as spilled ink on metal. At a distance, Keith could already tell the infection had set in. The room seemed to contract. The choice he'd made now had immediate consequence. Summary: Keith defies orders to approach the imprisoned Zathan Queen in a sealed containment bay. The scene establishes stakes: Titan's massacre, Keith's oath, and the Queen's menacing injury as the central immediate conflict. Keith's voice steadied even when his heart hammered. I'm here to help. He raised the medkit like a white flag. The Queen's response was a low, dangerous sound, a clash of mandibles translated into human language by the neural implant behind Keith's ear. Her words were accusation and amusement, a human physician come to watch the mighty fall. The bay's lights threw the Queen's silhouette into jagged shadows. Up close, the wound was worse than the report suggested, a gash deep enough to reveal darker tissues beneath the carapace, the edges crusted in infected detritus that glinted under the sterilizer's blue light. Keith knelt and began his careful work. The sterilizer wand sang as it passed along the wound's margin. He worked with a medic's practiced calm, cleaning, debriding, applying regenerative gel calibrated for arthropod physiology. This was surgical choreography played out in inches. One wrong move and the Queen's talons could end him in a heartbeat. Her body tensed, but she did not strike. Instead, her voice softened, puzzled. She admitted what Keith already knew. In the war outside, they were enemies. She would have killed him given the chance. He kept working, fingers steady, applying a biofilm bandage that hummed as it sealed to the flesh. As he smoothed the adhesive into place, a massive hand lashed out, seizing his wrist with a grip that could crush bone. Keith froze as the Queen commanded him to press again, to repeat the gentleness that felt like an alien ritual to one who had known only violence. He obliged, laying his other hand beside the bandage and matching the same measured pressure. A deep thrumming rose from the Queen's chest, a sound almost like a purr. For the first time, the alien experienced human softness, compassion. Summary: Keith performs a delicate medical procedure on the Queen. Danger and trust intermingle when she unexpectedly requests repeated gentle contact, revealing vulnerability beneath her warlike nature. Compassion became the vocabulary that moved between them. The Queen, schooled in a philosophy of survival, the strong survive, the weak perish, attempted to map this new sensation. Keith offered a definition: taking care of someone even when they are your enemy. The Queen tested the word aloud, tasting it like a foreign spice. Her species had no formal name for such mercy. She had known campaigns, strategic extermination, the cold calculus that kept empires safe by annihilating threats. Yet the thrumming sound continued, less guarded now, as if some ancient wound beyond the visible one responded to the unfamiliar kindness. Over the comm, Judith's voice cut in with urgency and disbelief. The observation deck's recording had captured everything. The bay's glass reflected the twin images, a medic's slow, careful hands and the great alien shape relaxing as treatment took hold. Outside, the Alliance net would soon feed on the footage. Shocked citizens, soldiers, and diplomats watching an emblem of the enemy be tended by human hands. Keith finished packing his kit, the pragmatic movements of someone trained to leave quickly and return only when necessary. He told the queen the infection should clear in 48 hours and promised to return alone to change the dressing. It was a small pledge, but in the sterile geometry of the containment bay it carried disproportionate weight. The queen's voice, when it came, carried something Keith had never encountered in Azathan: grief. She named the clutch sister she had lost at Titan, Zathrix, a commander of the Northern Fleet. That name slid between them like a shard, the human cost of interstellar politics made intimate. The queen's understanding of humans shifted in that moment, her categorical contempt wavered, the scene's ripples were immediate. As Keith left the bay, the hatch sealed behind him and the weight of what had happened followed. Judith, already descending from the observation deck, caught him and pulled him into the sudden gravity of the moment. The recording was being shared and people were reacting, humanity trending, Zathene diplomats shifting posture, calls for peace talks puncturing the constant drumbeat of retaliation. 4 months, the Alliance had framed their campaign as moral necessity, and the image of a human medic tending to the enemy undermined simple narratives. Citizens who had tracked the horrors of Titan felt a hollowing now that compassion had been visualized. Keith was baffled by the public adulation. To him, he had kept his oath, he had performed his duty. But ritual and optics have power. The footage crystallized into a story that belonged to everyone. The medic who crossed a political line and, in doing so, created an emblem of possible reconciliation. Command would have their bureaucratic calculations, political operatives their spin, and the Zathene channels would shuttle new narratives back and forth across embassies and war rooms. Yet in the small corridor outside the bay, Judith's look said more than any headline. She believed, wildly perhaps, that the footage could change minds. In the containment bay, visible through reinforced glass, the queen returned to her thrumming, one massive hand resting on the fresh bandage. The small, human touch that had once been an offense had become a talisman. Keith's final moments in the scene are quiet and human. He stands at the hatch and tells the queen he will report cooperation and continue treatment. The queen focuses on that promise with a gravity that borders on reverence. For her, this small act of mercy will be remembered. She says she will remember the human who reached past blood and policy to do what ought to be done. For Keith, the encounter stitches a new narrative into the fabric of the war. Sometimes the strongest acts are not the ones that win battles, but the ones that preserve the possibility of something better. He walks into a corridor that is still full of noise, reporters, diplomats, soldiers, but something in him has shifted. The war will continue, decisions will be made, and the dead at Titan will not be brought back. Yet a single visible act of compassion has introduced a variable the strategists must now account for. Judith's tears and the public's response crystallize an idea that the story frames as its moral center. Victories aren't always measured in enemy counts or territory gained. Victory can be a hand that heals when it could strike, a choice for mercy when vengeance is justified. That choice changes people, policies, and perhaps, over time, the arc of interspecies relations. The Queen's last words in the transcript acknowledge a new understanding of strength, not in the killing blow but in the mercy that follows.